She popped the lock on my truck like she was opening her own jewelry box, humming like a cartoon villain and muttering something about how young people just leave things lying around. She had no idea the toolbox she was taking didn't belong to me, at least not entirely. It belonged to my brother, a federal bomb technician, and that innocent-looking case was currently in training mode, which meant if she so much as flipped the wrong latch inside, she wouldn't be organizing community junk. She'd be sending the entire neighborhood into full evacuation protocol. And the worst part? She did it with a smile, waved at a toddler, and drove off like she just saved the world. It started like any other Tuesday. Sunny, too quiet, and just calm enough that I should have known something was about to go wrong. I had stopped at Tuckman's Hardware, local spot, family-owned, good folks. I was picking up some reinforced bolts and a set of bracket arms for a trailer hitch my brother and I were rebuilding over the weekend. Simple errand. My brother Brett, who worked EOD with a federal bomb response unit, had left his diagnostic kit in my truck temporarily while he ran a calibration back at the station. Normally he kept it locked up tighter than Fort Knox, but today, just for convenience, it rode in the bed of my truck, beneath a sealed fiberglass tonneau cover and 2 cable locks. The case itself was matte black, armored, and blinking faintly like it knew something was coming. Which it did. As I'm waiting inside to pay, the cashier stops scanning and stares past me out the window. I turn and see a woman, mid-50s probably, standing by my truck, hands on her hips, inspecting it like she's deciding whether it violates HOA lawn regulations. Her name, I would later find out, was Karen Delancey. Everything about her screamed suburban royalty: layered bob haircut, oversized sunglasses, a floral top aggressively tucked into bright capris, and a demeanor that made it seem like she owned the parking lot, the hardware store, and probably the sun. She bent over, peered through the tinted truck bed window, and frowned in that specific Karen way that meant, "This displeases me." Now, I should have run outside then and there, but I was still half listening to the cashier talk about socket sizes when I saw her reach into her purse, pull out a stainless steel ruler, yes, a ruler, and start jamming it under the latch of the truck bed cover. The lock clicked. My heart stopped. Then she opened it like she was unveiling a treasure chest. I sprinted for the door. By the time I got outside, she had already pulled the case halfway out. She was groaning and muttering about how somebody's kid was clearly neglecting valuable tools. The moment she saw me, she smiled and said, "Don't worry, hon, I'm just taking this to the donation tent. These kinds of tools go to waste if we let boys like you hoard them." I couldn't breathe. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I looked down at the black case in her hands and saw the LED screen flashing yellow. Yellow meant training mode was active. Not dangerous, per se, but if you didn't know how to use the diagnostic scanner inside, you could accidentally simulate a live explosive lock, which would trigger the GPS beacon, alert Brett's entire division, and shut down cell towers in a 3-mile radius. "Ma'am," I said very slowly, like I was trying to talk a bear out of mauling me. "That's not for donation. That's not even mine. That's government property." She squinted at me like I'd said something offensive. "Oh, don't be dramatic. It's just a toolbox. You boys and your toys." Then, before I could stop her, she loaded it into the back of her SUV. A silver mid-sized crossover that had definitely never hauled anything heavier than yoga mats. I took 2 steps toward her vehicle, but she hopped in the driver's seat and drove off, giving me a cheerful wave out her window like this was a freaking Disney movie. I stared at the space where her SUV had been like it could reverse itself into non-existence if I concentrated hard enough. It didn't. Instead, the truck bed sat open behind me, empty except for the scuffed outline of the missing case. I pulled out my phone. There was only one person to call, Brett. He answered on the second ring. I didn't even say hello. She took it. There was a pause. Took what? The case. The black one. The one with the scanner. Karen. Some woman named Karen just popped the lock on my truck and took your case. Another pause. I could hear the gears turning in his head. Then he exhaled like a war vet hearing helicopters. She what? She said she was donating it. She thought it was a toolbox. Is it still in standby? No, man. It's blinking yellow. Oh, He cut himself off. All right. Listen. That's not dangerous unless she opens it. But if she opens it and pokes the wrong panel, it'll simulate a threat protocol. It'll start a countdown. A countdown to what? To a non-lethal detonation. Paint charge. But she won't know that. And neither will anyone around her. Where do I go? Don't. I'm calling it in. You stay put. She just stole a restricted diagnostics unit from a federal vehicle. And if she triggers that countdown, every bomb tech within 50 miles is going to descend on her like she lit a firecracker at an airport. I was already moving. Brett, I'm not staying put. I need to know where she's going. He growled. You see her license plate? No. But she said something about a donation tent. Donation tent? Probably one of the garage sale drop-offs near Oak Ridge. All right. Call me when you find her. And for God's sake, don't touch the case. I hung up and jumped into my truck. The engine fired like a starter pistol. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Brett. If it goes red, duck. So there I was, chasing down a woman who believed she was doing a civic favor by stealing what she thought was a forgotten toolbox, but was actually a piece of military-grade training equipment that could cause panic, lockdowns, and end up with someone in cuffs. She had no clue what she was carrying. No idea who she'd taken it from. No idea that just under the handle she so cheerfully gripped was a panel marked Simulated Threat Response, Do Not Touch. And just to make it worse, it was now almost noon. Garage sale prime time. The toolbox was out there, and Karen was about to give the world a live demonstration. Karen Delancey had driven off like she just performed a public service, like stealing federal-grade equipment from my truck had somehow earned her a medal. I knew Oak Ridge Park held weekend swap meets and donation tents near the community rec center, so I floored it in that direction, weaving between traffic, praying she hadn't opened the case yet. As I turned onto Oak Ridge Drive, my worst fear rolled right into view. Karen's silver SUV parked in front of a folding table lined with used books, lamps, and some guy trying to sell a half-broken treadmill. There she was, center stage, beaming like a politician. And in front of her, sitting squarely on a folding table, was the bomb squad diagnostics case. Lid open. Tools arranged. And a group of nosy bargain hunters gathered around like it was a yard sale holy grail. Karen waved her arms dramatically as she presented the contents of the case. It's all high-tech stuff, she declared, puffing up like a goose. From my late cousin. He was a consultant in engineering. Secret stuff. Top level. That's why some of it's blinking. Totally normal. I slammed the brakes and nearly jumped out before the truck came to a full stop. I dashed toward her just in time to see a little kid pick up a handheld scanner, flip it upside down, and press the glowing red button on the side. The scanner beeped. The case beeped back. And then the LED display changed from yellow to orange. Oh my God! I whispered, grinding to a halt. Karen turned to me like I was interrupting her art exhibit. There he is! The young man who left this all unattended. You should be thanking me for making sure it got to a better place. I didn't even look at her. My eyes were glued to the display. 3 numbers blinked. A countdown. 90 seconds. Everyone step away from the table! I shouted, louder than I intended. People laughed at first. A few teenagers nearby cheered like it was a prank. Then I pointed at the scanner in the kid's hand and said, "Put that down, gently. Right now." Brett's voice buzzed in my ear through the phone still clutched in my hand. "Is it counting down?" "Yeah," I muttered. "It's orange. 90 seconds. Don't touch it," he said firmly. "I'm en route. Squad truck's 10 minutes out. You touch that thing with the protocol active, and it escalates to red." Karen overheard that part and rolled her eyes. "Oh please, it's a toy," He's just trying to scare people now because he knows he was being irresponsible. The lady manning the donation booth, who up to now had been silent and sipping iced tea, suddenly stood and backed away, realizing something wasn't right. Then others did the same. The mood shifted like a wave. Laughter turned to confusion, confusion to murmurs, murmurs to panic. Karen tried to wave it off, literally flapping her hands like she was clearing smoke. Everyone calm down. You're acting like it's a bomb. I stepped closer to her. Karen, I said, slow and steady, you need to listen very carefully. That's not a toolbox. That's a diagnostics unit used by federal bomb squads for training and live simulations. What that little boy just activated is a simulated live protocol. In less than a minute, it's going to perform a mock detonation, and if it detects movement or tampering, it can escalate to level red, which will shut down every signal tower within a mile. She blinked. Twice. Then scoffed. You're making this up. Behind me, the distant sound of sirens started growing louder. Karen's face changed from smug to annoyed. Unbelievable. This is all just some elaborate prank. You people and your dramatics. What is this, a TikTok? You see that blinking light? I pointed to the box. Yes, she snapped. It's not TikTok. That's the part that logs fingerprints and sends them to Homeland Security. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted to the open lid. The scanner was still active. The countdown hit 30 seconds. People were now fully backing away. The flea market crowd had turned into a fleeing crowd. One guy grabbed his hot dog and ran. Another lady knocked over a jar of pickles trying to get her kid out of a stroller. Karen, for the first time, looked uncertain. She raised one finger and said, I think maybe we should close the lid. No, I said. Do not touch it. If you do, it thinks someone is tampering, and it accelerates the countdown. How do you even know all this? She snapped. Because, I said, pointing behind me, the guy who owns that case is my brother, and he's the one pulling up right now in a truck full of actual bomb squad personnel. Sure enough, the deep hum of a reinforced response vehicle came to a halt behind my truck. The bomb squad emblem was unmistakable, and out jumped Brett, suited in his response gear, looking like a futuristic riot cop with gloves and a calm headset. He stormed over, gave me a brief nod, then turned on Karen. You opened it? She blinked. I thought it was left behind. It was just lying in the back of his truck. So you broke into a vehicle, Brett said sharply, and took federal equipment you didn't understand, brought it into a public space, let children handle it, and ignored every warning this man gave you. Karen sputtered. It looked like a toolbox. You ever seen a toolbox with biometric scanners, coded LEDs, and a fingerprint panel? Karen's face strained. Brett turned to the unit, tapped a control pad on his wrist, and the countdown paused. He carefully closed the lid and disconnected the scanner, then tapped a few more buttons. The lights on the case turned blue. Safe. He stood up and turned to the two officers who had stepped out of the squad truck. Tag her, he said. We're filing for federal interference. She compromised a diagnostics unit and active training. It's all on that camera over there. He pointed to a streetlight-mounted security camera. Karen panicked. Wait, this was a mistake. A misunderstanding. I was just trying to help. You're lucky that unit wasn't set to high sim, Brett replied. Because if it had been, and you triggered it in the middle of a crowd, we'd be dealing with full-scale lockdown, bomb dogs, air support, and a 3-day investigation. You'd be on the news for all the wrong reasons. And as if on cue, someone shouted, Too late! And held up their phone. Karen's stunt had been recorded. Multiple angles, multiple people. Some already live streaming. One clip showed her telling the kid, Go ahead, push the button, it probably makes a sound. As the officers began walking her toward the squad vehicle, she turned back, her voice desperate. You're going to regret this. I didn't do anything wrong. Brett turned to me and muttered, You think that was the worst of it? No, I said. I think that was just the start. Karen didn't go quietly, even after the case was powered down and locked. She screamed the whole way into the back of the patrol car, rattling off every ridiculous excuse she could come up with on the spot. She said she had arthritis and needed the box for posture correction. She said she thought it was a pet carrier. At one point, she tried to convince the officers that Brett and I were part of a prank show and that we'd hired fake cops just to humiliate her. They didn't even respond. They just nodded, closed the door behind her, and turned on the in-car camera with an audible beep. Karen tried to wave it off again like it was some kind of overreaction, but she knew something had shifted. For once, the usual Karen confidence was starting to crack. At the precinct, the situation didn't get any better for her. After being informed that the equipment she tampered with was part of a federal training protocol, and after seeing her own fingerprints logged on the unit, Karen launched into a monologue so erratic it almost seemed rehearsed. She claimed she was part of the neighborhood safety patrol, that she had been trained by retired detectives, and that she had been on the lookout for suspicious items. The officer interviewing her just blinked at her, occasionally glancing at the blinking recording device that captured every word she said. The ridiculousness was self-incriminating in the most poetic way. Meanwhile, Brett and I were in a separate room, going through the logs from the diagnostics case. It had fully recorded her interaction from the moment she opened it. Fingerprint timestamps, activation sequence, voice detection, and even the live feed from the scanner she'd let the kid play with. Every detail. It was all neatly packaged and exportable, ready for the report. Brett leaned back and let out a low whistle. "You know," he said, tapping the screen, "if she had pressed 2 more buttons, this thing would have simulated an actual EOD lockdown protocol. We'd have had to cordon off the entire park. She probably thought it'd vibrate and do nothing," I said. "She nearly got a whole flea market shut down. And a couple of Facebook live streams sent straight to the Pentagon." Brett chuckled dryly. "That part might actually help." While she sat in a holding cell, Karen's video had already made its rounds online. Several people from the garage sale had posted clips showing the moment she opened the case, when she told the child to press the button, and of course, her public meltdown when the bomb squad arrived. One particularly creative guy edited it with dramatic music and flashing text that said, "Karen vs. the Bomb Squad, who will win?" It had 40,000 views by lunchtime. She didn't know it yet, but she was becoming famous in the worst way. That afternoon, the precinct received a formal message from Homeland Security. The unit Karen had opened was registered under a federal tracking program. The moment it entered countdown mode, a passive alert had been logged at the district level. No action had been taken since Brett had deactivated it on-site and filed the incident as a training-level breach, but now that the internet had caught wind of it, the powers that be were paying attention. Karen's fingerprints were on a federal record, even if the case was non-lethal. That meant automatic review and a possible fine, or worse. She was released that evening under strict conditions. No travel, mandatory court appearance, and a requirement to attend a safety awareness seminar organized by the county. Brett and I were there when they let her out. She came stomping out of the station like she was walking off a game show stage she didn't agree with. The moment she saw us, her mouth opened like she was ready to unleash hell. "You set me up!" she yelled. Brett raised an eyebrow. "You broke into a vehicle and stole classified training equipment." "I was helping," she snapped. "You boys leave dangerous junk lying around like it's normal." "You mean locked and sealed in a truck bed?" "Yeah. Totally irresponsible of us." She huffed, spun on her heel, and stormed toward her car. Unfortunately for her, 2 local reporters had already parked nearby. The moment she saw the camera, she froze. The microphone came out. "Miss Delancey, any comment about today's incident with the bomb squad?" She slapped the mic away and drove off. Over the next few days, the story refused to die. The footage made its way onto morning talk shows and local news blooper reels. A popular podcast used her audio as part of a sketch. Even the city's emergency services Twitter account posted a vague, but clearly inspired message. Reminder: if it's blinking and says do not touch, don't touch it. It got nearly 100,000 likes. Karen did everything in her power to fight back. She posted a furious rant on her Facebook page blaming government overreach, weaponized prank boxes, and fake badges. That only made things worse. Someone screenshotted her post, and it went viral too. Her daughter, who worked in public relations according to a few posts, reportedly begged her to stop, but Karen doubled down. She even tried to accuse Brett of impersonating a federal agent. That led to an official response from his department, complete with his credentials, a breakdown of the unit involved, and a very polite suggestion that Karen consider a lawyer. And then came the seminar. The safety awareness class was mandatory for people who had been involved in public disturbances or who had interfered with law enforcement protocols. Normally, it was a boring 3-hour session with videos and brochures. But this time, Karen was seated front row, flanked by 2 other people who had committed far lesser offenses. She sat stiff, arms crossed, glaring like she was waiting for someone to start clapping for her bravery. The instructor began with a standard video about how to identify hazardous materials and suspicious devices. Brett, who had volunteered to assist with the session, stepped forward halfway through and introduced a mock version of the diagnostics case. Deactivated, of course. Karen's eyes widened the moment she saw it. This, Brett said, is the exact type of training unit used by federal ED teams. While this one is disabled, in a real-world setting, tampering with a device like this could lead to full-scale evacuations, serious injuries, and legal consequences. Luckily, the individual in question triggered only the demo protocol. Karen squirmed in her seat. A man in the back raised his hand and asked, "Wait, is that the box from the lady who told the kid to press the red button?" Brett didn't answer directly. But someone else in the room quietly muttered, "That was her," and pointed. Karen's face turned the color of rust. The rest of the seminar went by in awkward silence. Karen didn't speak again. She left without a word, avoiding eye contact, head down. For once, she didn't have anything to say. Maybe it was the videos, the fingerprint logs, or the knowledge that the entire neighborhood had seen her go viral for the worst reason possible. Or maybe, just maybe, it was starting to sink in that not everything could be fixed with denial and decibels. Later that night, Brett sent me a screenshot. It was an email notification. Karen had applied for a volunteer position on the local neighborhood watch board. Her application had been automatically rejected. Reason: pending legal review due to interference with federal equipment. Brett sent another message a minute later. "I think we need a new lock for the truck." Weeks passed, but the Karen incident refused to die. The video clips, memes, and dramatic reenactments only got worse, each version more exaggerated than the last. Someone edited a slow-motion compilation of Karen yelling about, just borrowing, the Toolbox, set to operatic music and subtitles like, "Karen vs. the Bomb Squad, Dawn of Entitlement." It hit 500,000 views. People started tagging the local police department on social media asking if they had officially added a Karen protocol to their training. The city's public safety Twitter account began responding with tongue-in-cheek hashtags, and Brett became something of a local celebrity. Not that he enjoyed it. Every grocery trip turned into a conversation about that woman with the blinking bomb case. Even I got recognized once at a gas station by a guy who handed me a bumper sticker that read, "If it's blinking, don't be thinking." Karen, on the other hand, had seemingly vanished from public life, which for someone like her was more punishment than any fine. Her Facebook page had gone dark. Her daughter, who clearly had some sense, issued a quiet statement to a local reporter claiming that her mother was taking time away from community engagement. The polite translation was, Karen was hiding until people forgot she nearly triggered a citywide panic with a case she thought contained power drills. But fate, of course, wasn't finished with her. It started with a knock on her front door early one morning. Not loud or aggressive, just a firm, official kind of knock. Karen opened it in her robe, expecting a package. Instead, she found two sharply dressed agents from Homeland Security standing on her porch. They weren't arresting her, but they were there to conduct a formal follow-up. It wasn't just about the diagnostics unit anymore. Apparently, Karen's online posts claiming the bomb squad was running a scam operation had been flagged. She'd shared conspiracy theories and accusations that crossed a line into threatening territory. So now the feds were checking to make sure she wasn't part of some larger problem. The agents asked polite but pointed questions. Why had she taken the case? Why did she continue to claim it was fake after being shown evidence otherwise? Why did she encourage a child to tamper with what she believed was a federal device? Karen tried to spin her way out of it. She blamed us, blamed the store, even tried to claim the real villain was the person who recorded her video without getting the full context. The agents didn't react. They simply took notes and handed her a formal notice. She was being fined for unauthorized possession of controlled government property and cited for endangering public safety. It wasn't enough to land her in jail, but it was enough to haunt her credit score and her reputation. After they left, she must have realized her days of running things were over. The HOA banned her from committee meetings. Her application to head the neighborhood watch was rejected again, this time with a short message. We are not currently seeking volunteer bomb handlers. The community gardening club, which she had previously tried to take over, quietly stopped inviting her to events. She didn't take it well. Her house, once a beacon of overly decorated holiday themes and passive-aggressive lawn signs, started to look neglected. The flamingo display was gone. The porch swing had a broken chain. Even the aggressive, no soliciting, sign had faded and curled like it had given up. Meanwhile, Brett received a request from the local police department to give a talk at a nearby high school. They wanted someone to speak about safety, emergency procedures, and why you don't mess with blinking black boxes you find in other people's trucks. Brett brought the disabled version of the case with him, and the students were fascinated. He even let a few of them simulate the scanning protocol, and watch how the system logged fingerprints and activated test responses. It was a hit, and when someone inevitably asked, "Is this the same thing that lady stole from the flea market?" Brett just nodded and said, "Let's just say that's why you always ask before touching something that isn't yours." The incident was officially behind us, or so we thought, until one final twist made it all worthwhile. It happened on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Brett and I were at the house working on the trailer again. The weather was good, and for once, there were no sirens, no lectures, no phones blowing up. Then the mailman pulled up and handed me a padded envelope addressed to Brett. It had no return address. Inside was a bumper sticker that read, "Support your local bomb techs." Harmless, right? Except the sticker had been folded around a small metal object that looked like a screw but had a tiny wire loop through it. Suspicious, but not dangerous, unless you happened to work for the federal government and had your mail screened. Brett looked at it for 2 seconds, then swore under his breath and called the station. Within the hour, the Postal Service had flagged it, scanned it, and confirmed it was nothing more than a decorative novelty screw with a joke wire loop through it. No bomb. No threat. But because it had been mailed to a bomb tech, it triggered another formal review. The kicker? The sticker had been purchased online using a credit card belonging to Karen Delancey. When the agent reviewing the case asked why she'd send something like that, she reportedly said it was a peace offering. A gesture of understanding. Brett laughed so hard when he heard that, he nearly dropped his phone. Her version of an apology was sending something that almost caused another mail disruption. You couldn't make it up if you tried. We didn't press charges for the sticker. It wasn't worth it. But the agency issued her a formal warning. Any further stunts, and she'd be moved from public nuisance to national distraction. That night, we sat on the back porch, beers in hand, just letting it all settle. Brett stared at the stars and said, "You know, I thought I'd seen some ridiculous things in this job. Improvised explosives, malfunctioning robots, some guy once tried to defuse a microwave with a hammer. But this was new." I raised my bottle. "To Karen." He clinked his bottle against mine. To the only person who ever made a training case more dangerous than an actual bomb. In the end, Karen didn't go to jail. She didn't face years of punishment. But she got something almost worse. She became the living cautionary tale. The woman who stole a blinking case, ignored all warnings, and tried to debate a bomb squad technician on federal procedures. Her name became the warning itself. And for anyone who ever thinks about messing with something they don't understand, the story of Karen Delancey is the one they'll hear first. And if they forget? Well, there's a sticker on Brett's bumper that says it all. If it's blinking, don't be thinking.